Welcome, welcome, welcome to this exploration of the stellar gateways. We will be featuring the stars of our ancestral origins and our divine destiny in this class. So our intent is to be able to cover most of the material that we have for you, which is quite a lot, and then have questions at the end. So that's what we're going for. So we have the geomantic gateways, two stellar triangles on the Milky Way band. So we'll be looking at the southern triangle, also known as the winter triangle, but it's south of the ecliptic, and it's also called the Great Southern Triangle. From the northern hemisphere perspective, and something that we are really seeing as the gateway of ancestral origins, and we'll be talking a lot about that. And then the other thing is to say, for those of you, we have some people that may be joining us from the southern hemisphere. We will do a little bit of exploration around that, but that is not our field of expertise since we don't live in the southern hemisphere. So it's not our experience and we don't know how to speak to it as well. But we would invite anybody from the southern hemisphere who may have some ideas or ways of looking at this to share with us their insights. Then we're going to also look at the Northern Triangle as the gateway of divine destiny. It's also called the Navigator's Triangle for those in the Northern Hemisphere, because of course it's not as easy to see in the Southern Hemisphere, and it wouldn't be used as a Navigator's Triangle. It's also called the Summer Triangle. So these are the things that we're going to be looking at. And just something I'm going to share with you is that I injured myself pretty severely, so I'm not in my usual space. I'm better, I'm doing better, but I'm gonna be turning off my video so that I can just relax and lean back and not have to be in an upright position. And I may or may not turn it back on when I'm talking in down the road. So just wanted to say that so people understand like what the heck is going on there. And so
Yes.
so I
And
think you're ready to take it away, Eric.
yeah, thank you, Kaylin, and relax for a few minutes here.
Yeah.
So why are we focusing on these gateways, these stellar triangles that anyone could see almost just about almost every place on the planet, with certain extreme exceptions. Um, the it is about this number. I think overall it's an awareness of the sky first, over everything. It's the connection that we have to the starry region above ourselves, and to, like, on a spiritual, on a metaphysical level, and that our stories are literally written in the sky, in the stars. So working with that in this way, we can, particularly with the gateways, we can have an awareness of both our celestial origins and our potential destiny, and allows us to be more conscious in engaging our past and future in useful and evolutionary ways. These gateways are also metaphysical, spiritual, and astral portals, that anyone can connect with. So these are sort of major, like, bullet points here that we're talking about, and like going out into the sky. So it doesn't necessarily need to have, oh, you got to have a planet in a certain position. I mean, these stars are available. And again, for much of the population, probably 95% of the Earth's population can see both of these. These are also, of course, easy to spot. Just a commentary on that. They're all generally universally accessible. So we're focusing on these. There's other gateways, there's other portals out there in the sky, but these ones are more like readily available, if you will. The gateways play a vital role in our journey for humanity, on a collective level, but we could also have, on a personal level, we could have some things within ourselves and our charts, our astrology charts, that may be connected to individual stars or the gateway itself. And so they play a vital role for individuals, and the Earth, and ultimately also the solar system as well. And it can give us these gateways, these stellar triangles and portals. They can deepen our relationship with the shamanic and alchemical sky work, by thereby helping embody it in our own lives as an additional bonus. So, in fact, the ancient roots of alchemy are connected into the movement of the heavens, the sun, the moon, and the stars. So even the shamanic work is connected on an ancient level there throughout the globe. So that's a big reason why we are focusing in on these gateways.
And they called to us.
Yes.
They were like, talk about us. We want you to talk about us. So, okay, here we
All
are.
right. Would you like me to continue with the?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So these are triangles. Now, both of these triangles that we're going to talk about, this is an introduction to these triangles. The online course that we're teaching beginning in November 14th, goes into the deeper details. There's going to be some, of course, details with these triangles as we go through this particular hour and a half plus class. But star triangles have this geometric form, and they've been powerful influence in humanity for many thousand years. Triangles themselves, not just up in the sky, but triangles. And a triangle consists, of course, everyone knows it consists of 3 points, and it's been used in history. Again, we refer back to the alchemical work as well by human beings, ancient philosophers, star priests and priestesses, astrologers and alchemists. All of them have at one time been, connected and are using triangular shapes. Obviously, the pyramids. You look on the sides of each of the pyramids, and the 4 sides of them, they're triangles. In the sky, there are many natural star triangles that have magical and alchemical properties for humanity. But this course is, of course, focusing on the two: the ancestral origin and the divine destiny. And then the number 3 has been equally powerful. 3 stars in each of those triangles, equal powerful in spiritual magical practices. So even the major religions work with that number in countless ways. And it is the power of the 3 is pretty potent in our lives, and in various ways, and even just in everyday lives, depending on your one's awareness of that. And Caitlin, I don't know if you want to share anything about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So power of 3, and there's different ways that has been looked at. The power of power, the power of love, and the power of forgiveness. Oh, I forget what the third one is. I say the power of forgiveness. But anyway, there's different ways that has been seen as the power of 3. And also we have from and as I was growing up, I remember the saying, when things happen in 3s, you need to pay attention. It's like a message. So there's that is another way that we've been attuned to the power of 3. And then I'm pretty sure, and I'll see if I can find it, we'll probably share more about this in the course, the power of 3 as listed in the Emerald Tablets as well. So yeah, lots of cool things about the power of 3.
Yeah. So this is just kind of an we're kind of coming out or zooming out into kind of looking at this from a galactic perspective here. So over 1 billion years ago, a cluster of stars formed in our galaxy that we know as the Milky Way band. So the Milky Way has been around a long time, but it took a while for like the Milky Way band, or if you will, to kind of formulate there. And since then, gravity has stretched that cluster of stars to form out the long stellar stream that we see across the sky. And the stars of the Milky Way band are passing relatively close to the Earth, meaning certain stars, depending on what stars, 330 light years, but they can go all the way to the center of the galaxy, which is about 25,000 light years away. And scientists feel this river of stars could help determine the mass of the entire galaxy. So in the image, you can see where our sun is. You see the plane of the galaxy from viewed on Earth here on below, right there. And if that's under those conditions, you have to be under perfectly dark skies, and that's done with a special telescope with, and photograph to get that kind of a clean of an image there. And it even includes, I think that's the southern hemisphere, because it shows the Magellanic clouds, the greater the large one and the smaller one down below that in the words. Kaylin, there you go, right there. Yeah, those ones. So that is actually, you can see those from the southern hemisphere. At one time, actually, one of those clouds, I can't remember which one, but it actually was at the southern pole position at one time. I think quite a few thousand years ago. Okay, so the River of Stars is about 1,300 light years long and 160 light years wide. So this is just a specific band of stars where we are, I believe, Kaylin, right? That's what we're talking about there.
Well, because we're going to look at how the stellar gateways that we're talking about have this band, Milky Way band, going through them.
Yes.
Yes, the celestial highway going through them. So yeah, why we want to really understand this.
Okay, cool. So then, of course, the European Space Agency spacecraft Gaia has done some mapping, and that showed the stars of the stream moving together. So we're all kind of moving in a cluster of stars, a lot of stars, a Milky Way band of stars coming in the set with roughly around the same speed and direction. So these stars tend to accompany us as we go, as Earth and the solar system orbits the center of the galaxy.
And we're going to see that a little later down the road, about how the orbit works and all of that. But yeah, this just gets us set up for now. So I'll just share about this one. The center of the galaxy is located between the constellation of the Scorpion and the Archer. I don't like this image of the Archer that much. It doesn't really look like an Archer to me, but whatever. Anyway, but the center of the galaxy, galactic center, is located right kind of at the tip of the tail of the Scorpion and the tip of the arrow of the Archer. And they didn't even know this was where galactic center was located until about the 1950s. And the arrow of the Archer is pointing right to the center of the galaxy at this time. These things move around a lot. So anyway, and you can see the northern triangle here. And it's got the Milky Way going right through it, right above where galactic center is, depending, it's all depending on how we're seeing the sky at any given time. So this is the brightest and easiest part of the Milky Way to see, is in this area of the sky. And it looks more like a celestial highway than, and say, at the galactic edge, which we're going to see in a moment. So the thing is that if you can go out underneath dark skies and not be dealing with light pollution, this is a mind-blowing experience to see the Milky Way, especially near the center of the galaxy. So one of the things we always encourage people to do is to go out under dark skies if possible, especially in the summer, when this is part of the Milky Way that's most visible. The ancient Egyptian culture saw this, the Milky Way band, as the goddess Isis. Sometimes it's depicted with her open wings, and her open wings are the Milky Way band, and also how she's spreading abundance of life-giving wheat across the sky. The Inca saw this band of stars as a stream of gold dust, kind of cool. The ancient cultures often saw it as a road or a path or a river of stars. The Maori of New Zealand saw it as a celestial canoe. Longer story there, we'll go more deeply into in the class. And the Iroquois described it as the path to eternal life after death, for the road of souls. So pretty cool. Lots of different, so we just wanted to bring in a few of the different cultural ways of seeing this band and why it's so important, and that the fact that these stellar triangles are on this band is pretty important. So this is the Milky Way. It doesn't show up as strongly at the galactic edge. And then here is the southern triangle, or the winter triangle, as we call it from the northern hemisphere, southern, because it's south of the ecliptic. And this band, this Milky Way band, river of stars, goes right through this southern triangle that we're going to be talking about. And the other thing just to notice is that the hunter, also known as Orion's hand, reaches right up to the galactic cross, where the sun at 0 Cancer, representing the June solstice. So that's summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, and that's the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. But it reaches right up and holds the sun on his hand at this time. And that can only happen at a great turning of an age, which of course we're at. Another story for another time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, this is just the Milky Way band. This is near the galactic edge, and you can see it's a lot lighter. It looks like a river of stars, or I don't know. I always think of this, I was explaining this to Erik earlier. It's like if you saw something on a road far, far away coming in, you can't see the road that well, but it's coming in towards you, like a car or, something coming from down a long ramp. And because we're looking out past the edge of our galaxy, it's like what's coming down this celestial highway is coming from perhaps beyond our galaxy, which is pretty cool. And then here's the summer triangle, and you can see how powerful this Milky Way band is coming through this stellar triangle. Anything you want to say more about that, Erik?
Right. I mean, that's one of the thicker parts of the band, but that's where it's up in the closer up to the polar star, and it connects us to like that region. And we'll talk about the divine destiny there, but that Vega and Deneb in particular, and that band right there and that thickness, this is part of that. The reason we're talking about this, the Milky Way itself, is because they stream through both of these gateways, and our connection to the Milky Way, because we're literally located in the Milky Way, and so that there's a sense of both. We're in some ways we're seeing it outside in a way, but we're also seeing it from the inside too at the same time. So you get both of those worlds kind of connected in, and these are just examples of this. You could see one's more light because it's way, way far away from, the center on the left side, and then on the right side here, we're seeing it's a bit closer to the galactic center, but not quite, of course, on the galactic center, but still kind of in the thicker area of the Milky Way.
Yeah, beautiful. So I love what you're saying, Erik, about we live in the Milky Way galaxy. We showed you that where our solar system is on the outer arm of the Milky Way galaxy. But the Milky Way band is something we see from Earth. So it definitely inspires our inquiry and inspires us in such beautiful ways if you get a chance to see and be with this Milky Way band. Here we have, now this is something that's true for the northern hemisphere, not in the same way for the southern hemisphere. Again, so southern hemisphere people, if you have some insights for us around that. But the summer triangle, or the triangle of divine destiny, is above the ecliptic in the northern hemisphere. So here's the ecliptic, the path of the planets. You can see the teapot, also part of the archer, below it, and then the teapot is pointing to galactic center. So you can see that this Milky Way band that comes through does point down towards galactic center. And then we have the winter triangle of our ancestral origins. This is the triangle that's seen in the sky beautifully in the winter time in the northern hemisphere. And it's south of the ecliptic plane. So here's the path of the planets. and it's this triangle is south of that. Now, I did do some southern hemisphere starry night, try to like get a sense of it. Here you can see Orion is upside down, pointing up to the June solstice point. The hand pointing up to the June solstice point, but upside down from their point of view. And then this so-called winter triangle is actually not happening in their winter because they are opposite seasons. But this is seen in October, the triangle, how it's seen in October, and it's kind of to the, from this perspective, to the side of the ecliptic. So not necessarily south. It's kind of interesting. And then here we have the summer triangle from the northern hemisphere perspective, or the navigator's triangle, and it's pointing up. So you may remember that in the images here, it's pointing down, and then here in the southern hemisphere, it's pointing up. So just so we get the idea that not everything looks the same from every part of the earth.
Right.
Yeah.
In
So
fact, it depends if you're like even along the equator, you get things are kind of tilted sideways. Not, I mean, some of it might be upside down, some of it may be, quote, whatever we think of as right side up, but there you get a different perspective, whether you're on the equator or up closer to the mid to northern latitudes or the mid to southern latitudes. You get these different perspectives when looking from Earth.
yes. So this is just another view of the northern triangle, or the summer triangle, from the southern hemisphere point of view in mid-October, and it seems to be below the ecliptic from their point of view, just wanting to honor that. And then also these constellations, if you're familiar with them, along the zodiacal ecliptic plane, are upside down as to how we normally see them. So just something to be conscious of too. So again, not always the same point of view. Okay.
Yeah. I'm happy to take this.
Yes. Yes.
So above and below, this is obviously things are different when depending on the hemisphere that you are, but that's of course above and below is essentially comes from that emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes Thoth Trismegistus, from ancient Egypt, and it's really connects us into what is above our heads, is mirroring what's here on the planet, and then also within ourselves and then outside of ourselves too. So in this case, like the stellar triangles are both above and below the ecliptic, as Kaylin has been sharing about. And that's also known as the plane of our solar system, where the sun holds sway across the sky. So it's also the place where all the planets are. So it's like this dividing line. And you can see in these images here, it shows where the triangle is in relationship to the ecliptic on both the left and the right. So we can move on to the next slide here. Yeah, so we've got two of these stellar triangles, these gateways, each consisting of 3 stars. And we've got the gateway of ancestral origins, which is, quote, below the ecliptic in the northern hemisphere or south of the ecliptic plane. So, of course, it's flipped, as Kaylin shared before, in earlier in the southern hemisphere. And then, we can imagine the star patterns above the ecliptic that connects us with our evolving consciousness. So this stellar gateway triangle from that has to do with the divine destiny, or northern triangle. This is our evolving consciousness and our future path, or divine destiny. So it's sort of the area which we're going to talk about, where we're moving toward in both a spiritual sense and also in a literal sense. So we'll get into that. And then on the south of the ecliptic, there's the ancestral origins one. That one is below. So it's more where our connects us with our ancestral origins, or where we've come from, the road traveled before. And this is all that is along the ecliptic itself. So if you were to just go, well, what is that? Well, that's sort of our middle world path, if you will. That is where all the planets are. That's the plane of the solar system where Earth travels. So it's really that middle world experience that the soul is having embodied in each of us. And meanwhile, we're traveling across those constellations, if you will, with the rest of the solar system. So while we're on this rocky planet here, a third from the sun, but this is just a commentary on connection to our soul's pathway here that we have. We are in the middle world. We're here to live in the middle world. And what does it mean to be a soul embodied in flesh and blood in this third dimensional density and gravity and reality? And then what does it mean to be coming from, what are the origins? And then what is our future? So this is giving us a context of that right here.
I love that. That's so similar to the idea of the three worlds from a shamanic model of the
Yes.
upper world, lower world, middle world. The upper world where we're, depending on who's talking about it, where we may be headed, and the lower world where we're regaining our power and our insight to move into the upper world. But we are doing all this from the middle world. So, and I love this idea of the ecliptic and the path that the planets are following being a part of that middle world experience that we can tune into, and that we can look at the stellar triangles above and below as also part of that path that goes beyond the middle world. Really cool. So this is the directions as they relate to the two hemispheres of Earth, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and also the solstices, just to kind of give a little bit more sense of that for people who aren't familiar with it. So the Earth is going around the sun, and the northern, in the summer, northern summer and the southern winter, you can see that the south side of the planet is darker in the winter, and that the north side of the planet is lighter in the summer. And then it's opposite happening. The opposite thing is happening in the northern hemisphere for winter, and then the southern hemisphere for summer. So just to kind of give you a sense of directions, and this is something that I realized because I did back in 2019, took the rites of the Moon Key, plus I had been down south in Peru and noticed that they always started their directions in the south. And that didn't make any sense to me when I first encountered it. Like, I didn't think about it too much. It was just like going with whatever was happening. But then I started thinking about it going, why is that they start in the south and our tendency is to start in the north? And then I realized, wait a second, we're north of the equator. So north is like their south, and our south is like their north. Like, it's whatever, the flip side of all of that. So it makes sense from that perspective. So I just wanted to kind of give us a sense that we're having an opposite experience in the different hemispheres related to seasons and directions.
Yeah, and now we're getting into each of these individual stellar gateways, the two stellar gateways, and that are triangles. So this is starting with the gateway of ancestral origins. And in fact, as we do the course, the online course, this is the gateway we're going to start with here and look at the stars and the gateway as a whole. So this is also known as the quote winter triangle because it's visible more so in the the winter time here in the northern hemisphere, and then of course the summertime in the southern hemisphere. But because it's called winter because most of the people that are on the planet, somewhere around 85 to 90% of the people on the planet are in either like right around the equator or north of the equator. And so it's most of the land masses are above the equator, for obvious reasons there. That's where most people live. So, all right. And then we talked about the southern hemisphere. So there's 6 stars. There's but this one, Event Gateway of Ancestral Origins, has the stars Sirius, Procyon or Procyon, and Betelgeuse, and they form a nearly equilateral triangle. So the triangle that's the other one, the Divine Destiny, it's a little bit elongated, but this one is much more on equal footing, if you will. So metaphysically, this southern triangle can be seen as the gateway of ancestral origins. This is due to the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, located near the point where our solar system is traveling away from. So we have literally been traveling, quote, away from that area. Now, all the other stars in the sky, some of them are kind of grouped together, like Kaylin was talking about, a specific band of stars that kind of travel along the same route. Well, there are other stars that kind of, they relative to us, they move in a different direction, or at least they might be going off in different ways. But we won't really notice that in our lifetime. It could take hundreds of years or thousands of years for us to understand, like, oh, where was that star in this place? So Sirius is moving more southerly over the next several centuries and millennia. But Sirius represents that area where we've been from, and then Vega is the opposite in the gateway of the Divine Destiny. That's where we're heading toward. And if you look in here by zodiacal degree, they're less than a degree, or about a degree away from about one and less than a quarter degree away from each other in zodiacal degree in opposition. So this is really intriguing that 2 of the brightest stars, or like the 2 of the top 5 stars that are the brightest in the sky, are in those placements there. And we happen to live in a time where that's happening, that there's something strong here, something synchronous taking place in our skies from Earth, and the overall evolution of our Earth as part of this. So they're 2 of the brightest stars, and all the stars, brightest stars in the sky, and after the sun, of course. And all of the stars in these geometric shapes and asterisms have deep mythologies associated with them. The word asterism is essentially just kind of groups of stars that are formed into, shapes from what, we see here from Earth.
And they tend to be separate from the constellations. So there's
right.
constellations, and often these asterisms are either within a constellation, or there are different constellations that created asterism with different as of course we'll be looking at as we go deeper into all of this. But
and just like, for example, the Big Dipper, that's an asterism that's contained within a larger constellation called Ursa Major, or the Great Bear.
Yeah, beautiful example. Okay, so the other thing is we're going to look at this, how Sirius is the place we're moving from, in our galaxy we tend to be moving from, and Vega is where we tend to be moving toward. We'll be looking at that a little bit more as we go along. So here's the ancestral origins triangle. I kind of feel like that's a better way to describe it, so that the people in the southern hemisphere aren't left out, because it's not happening in their winter so much. But anyway, this is the Native American sacred hoop of stars. Now they have a sacred hoop with a cross in the center, and so this isn't exactly a circle that I was able to draw here, but you can see the cross, the plane of the galaxy. Plane of the solar system where the planets travel, and the plane of the galaxy cross and form a cross inside this circle of stars. We'll talk about that more, the sacred hoop of stars. And of course, the ancestral origins triangle is within this sacred hoop of stars. In modern astronomy, they tend to call it the winter hexagon. There's another term, the winter circle, I think, and or the racetrack. That's another term they use.
Oh, I've heard of that term, the racetrack. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have these different terms for it, and they create this from Aldebaran to Capella to Castor and Pollux to Procyon or Procyon, Sirius to Rigel, and that's how they create the winter hexagon or winter circle or whatever you want to call it. But this sacred hoop of stars takes it out to the Pleiades and then back to Capella. So this is something we'll be covering a little bit more deeply. It's pretty fascinating, interesting, that we're looking at this gateway, this ancestral origins gateway that's within this sacred hoop of stars. And one of the things that the Lakota Dakota, as their way of looking at the sacred hoop of stars, it's like in the sacred hoop, every place on the wheel of the hoop or on the circle of the hoop is significant and important and needs to be honored and recognized. And that's not something that always happens in our culture. So we'll be looking more deeply at that as well. So you want to take this one?
Yeah, thank you. So the star Sirius, this is something we're going to place a lot of attention on with the ancestral origin gateway. In fact, I would say of all the stars in the sky, this might have the most stories about it, connections to, and mythologies and so forth across the planet, particularly in Africa. But there's also in Star Sirius has a relationship between the magical with sort of the mythical bird, the phoenix. And the story is that for centuries, millennia, the phoenix flies west to build a funeral pyre at the temple of Heliopolis in Egypt, then is consumed by the fires, but then is also rebirthed. So it's the ashes that give birth to a new phoenix. And this points to a relationship between the star Sirius and the sun, and how it repeats what they call Sothic cycles or Egyptian years. You know, that Sirius has that cycle repeated, and this is connected to Sopdet, the goddess, and of course the goddess Isis is connected, is associated also with the star Sirius as well. And depending on the time period in history, you know, you might have something else associated with it, but this is like a more understood one. And they formed an entire calendar based on this, and it was a calendar that it was also, particularly the star Sirius, was a strong element in regarding the flood cycles of the Nile. And we could talk more about that in the online course, but that just shows how important that star is there.
Yeah, yeah. And also in terms of ancestral origins and how in Mali, West Africa, the Dogon tribe believes to be of ancient descent, and their astronomical lore goes back thousands of years. That goes back way back. And according to their traditions, the star Sirius has a companion star, Sirius B, that's invisible to the human eye. And it has a 50-year elliptical orbit around the visible star Sirius A. So you can see that here, the small Sirius B going around the big Sirius A. Interesting to know that Sirius B wasn't photographed and confirmed until 1970. And this is, the Dogons have been talking about this for a long time. In fact, I think it was back in the 40s or 50s, some people went to the tribe and talked, got their oral traditions and were pretty astounded that they had this idea that there was another star circling Sirius. And so they say they're a race of people from the Sirius system called the Nomos that visited Earth thousands of years ago. And they resembled mermen and mermaids and appear in Babylonian, Akkadian, and Sumerian myths. And here's some ancient iconography showing the mer people. And that I find fascinating because I haven't actually seen it, and I'm going to see if I can find some images of that. But the goddess Isis is sometimes depicted as a mermaid. And then the Nomos are from the Sirius star system and landed on Earth in an ark that made a spinning descent to the ground with great noise and wind. So this is how they describe that. Sounds like a spaceship to me. And it was Nomos that gave the Dogon the knowledge of Sirius B.
Yeah, thank you. And then there's this Egyptian X figure, and this is something that you can see, particularly depending on the latitude you're in, and but uh, the Winter Triangle or the ancestral origin triangle gateway. So the star Sirius has been, guys, of course, as I mentioned before, connected with Isis and Sopdet, and at one time as well with Anubis, the underworld god. And there is this formation there that is an X that is connected with the lower triangle here, and the star is Nous and Fact, which is in that image there. And there's something called the ferry boat, and that top triangle is connected to that ferry boat. I could share more in the future, but that's there wasn't much written about this, but that was one of the projections that they had around this, and it just happens to be where that's part of the larger constellation of Argos, like from the story of Jason and the Argonauts. The Egyptian ferry boat is part of that area, so it's below the star Sirius. So it forms this great X in the sky, and now, of course, Sirius being sort of the center of that X, and we'll talk more about that. But one of the cool things about this, and that you can see from this, is that you have a top triangle and a bottom triangle. And I know that this could be upside down in the southern hemisphere, but we have both the masculine and the feminine represented or symbolized here, because the
oh, I forgot to eat it. Okay, it's for you.
Oops.
I forgot to eat it. I'm done.
But the top triangle, that's the one that is connected to the feminine. It's the involution of spirit into matter, and then the bottom one is the triangle that typically symbolizes the masculine coming from matter into spirit. And so their Sirius becomes that place where we could say alchemy happens, where the merging of the two, the polarity of the masculine and feminine come into connection there. So anyway, that's a fascinating kind of a imagery and potential for energetically, spiritually speaking. So more on that as we go on with in the online course.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, so, and now we have the Gateway of Destiny. So you want to share about this one?
Yeah, Gateway of Destiny. So the visibility of these star portals, of course, depends on the time of year. And this is the triangle we've mentioned a few times. Kaylin has as well. And it's not too far from the current northern pole star, Polaris. But the stars that form this are Vega, Altair, and Deneb, and they're all connected to bird constellations, recalling the bird tribes of our awareness. And so the best visibility of this is typically from July through September, but we can still see this at different times and different seasons, but that's when it's usually like really, really prominently featured in those months. Southern hemisphere is best to see it from January to March, actually. Metaphysically, this is the gateway of destiny due to Vega's proximity to the apex where the solar system is traveling toward, as I mentioned earlier. Now, there's a William Shakespeare quote that Kaylin pulled out that's pretty cool. It's not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves. So being aware of these star mysteries helps us to consciously choose our destiny. So we are utilizing our free will. We're utilizing our ability to make choices to be aware of them and to consciously work with them along our timeline, along our path.
Yes, beautiful. The other thing I wanted to say is that uh, the other thing about Vega is that it was the pole star 13,000 years ago. I think we're going to see that in a later
Yes.
thing. But so Vega has two very significant pieces that of where, of how it lines up as being the place where we're headed toward, but it also in 13,000 years will be the pole star in the northern hemisphere once again. So these are the stars of the summer triangle, or the triangle of our destiny, or where we're moving to. It was originally referred to as the navigator's triangle because this is what they would those sailing ships in the northern hemisphere would look to help them know what direction north was, along with Polaris or whatever happened to be the North Star at that particular time, depending on when that was. But the British astronomer Sir Patrick Moore and the American author H.A. Rey, who wrote a few books, actually, H.A. Rey, but one is great for kids if you have kids and you want to help them get more familiar with the sky. They're the ones that popularized the term summer triangle in the 1950s. So it's pretty recent as a northern hemisphere point of view, because of course, it's the triangle we see in the summer from the northern hemisphere, not so much from the southern hemisphere. And they're easy to locate because they're so bright. So, Erik.
Yeah, thank you. So Vega is also known, and its constellation, as a vulture or other bird diving or falling from ancient Egypt, because it's in the constellation of Lyra, which is the musical instrument from Greek mythology. But prior to that, it was connected to the bird, the falling vulture. Agrippa, Henry Cornelius Agrippa, in his work during the Renaissance period, wrote a whole book about the various magical and occult philosophies, and he describes Vega as the falling vulture in there. And so, assuming his knowledge of the Bohemian stars, which Vega is one of them, comes from Hermes, which is the sort of the root of the alchemical teacher. The avian imagery of Vega and this constellation goes back many thousands of years. Like a lot of these constellations, the stories that have carried forth for, countless generations, we just happen to be at this time where we still receiving all of that knowledge, all of those stories, and started with oral traditions and then eventually got into recorded on paper and other writing, receptacles. So we get to benefit from a lot of that right now. And then one of the stories we'll talk about too about Vega and this gateway of the divine destiny is the Weaver Girl and the Cowherd. This comes from ancient Japanese and Chinese culture, where there's a thing around Vega, and the story was centered about Vega and the stars around her, around the Vega star. So with references to the actual Sky King. So in that time, the Japanese called Vega Orihime and celebrated a festival in July, August called Tanabata. But it had a movable date to its origin being on a lunisolar calendar, meaning the sun and the moon. So it was typically held on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month. But it also, this story actually resonates with another story in ancient Mesopotamia, on the other side of the Asian continent there, the story of Inanna and Dumuzi. So anyway, there's really interesting things around this that now Dumuzi and Inanna typically is looked at with regards to the planets. But in this case, Vega plays a role in this particular story here. And that artwork is in, it comes from Beijing, and called The Artwork of the Long Corridor of the Summer Palace. And it's the reunion of the Weaver Girl and the Cowherd on the bridge of the Magpies.
Something we'll share more about when we get to
Mhm.
the live course. Yeah. So this is something that we mentioned earlier, that Vega was the pole star 13,000 years ago. And currently Polaris is the pole star, and they actually form a line between each other, like there's a direct line between each other. And if you put a circle around them, you can see how big the wobble of the Earth is going from pole star to pole star, and there's ones in between. And literally Cygnus has star, is it Deneb, or you might remember, Eric?
Deneb.
Yeah, that becomes the pole star at some point
Uh-huh.
in that 13,000 year, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, in about 11,500 years from now, Vega will once again be the pole star and the brightest star in the whole circuit of the successive pole stars. It's only 4.5 degrees from the exact point, as it was about 14,300 years ago. In 1880, it was a 51-degree, 20-minute distance. Would you want to say more about that?
Yeah, that was written by it's just amount of degrees, astronomical degrees from the center. So but then that's how long it takes for Vega to circle back around. And that 13,000 is the approximate number. So when we're saying 11,500 and 14,300, that's basically depends on where, like if you were to place from a visual perspective or from an astronomical mathematical perspective, where Vega would be with the North Star. So 13,000 years is usually the best number to give because it's right there in that sort of that middle region there. So that's kind of where that is. And so it kind of stays in that position for quite a long time, for several centuries, if not like over a millennia or around that. So it gets close to it, like as we say, like at the near, like under 5 degrees there, but it doesn't actually get as close as what Polaris is right now. Polaris becomes essentially the closest pole star that we have, and it actually is going to be getting closer it gets its closest point by about the year 2100. So it hasn't even moved to its nearest point. So, but Vega, you got to wait another 13,000-ish years before we get there.
And just something to know about the pole star, if you're not familiar with it, is that in the northern hemisphere, the entire sky turns around that star. So it never moves. It's never above or below the horizon. How high above the horizon it is, depends on what latitude you're at. So like I'm at 32 degrees north latitude, so it's about 32 degrees above the horizon. Where Eric is, you're at 40 something degrees.
About 42 degrees north.
Yeah, so for Erik, the Polaris is about 42 degrees above the horizon, but the entire sky is turning around that star. That's where our north point of the planet is pointed to. So as the planet turns, because the sky's not really turning, but as the planet turns, that's what it appears to be doing. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and if you were to look, if you were to stand directly at the North Pole, the Polaris would be directly above your head, and the whole sky would turn in this perfect circle, essentially.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Oh, yes, the apex and the antipex. Okay, so these are terms we're going to use as well in the online course. The solar apex is where the sun, along with all that is orbiting the sun, is moving toward. The antipex is where the sun has moved from. And so currently Vega is located in the circumpolar constellation of Lyra and roughly represents the solar apex, and at 1536 Capricorn. And then Sirius is at 1421 Cancer and is near the solar antipex. So that's where again, it's not perfectly, Vega and Sirius aren't perfectly where that is, but they're very close to that point. So if you look at those stars, you can literally see where we've been and where we're going. And you also be looking at the 2 gateways as well. So each triangle is linked to our ancestral origins and the divine destiny as well through those 2 triangles. And yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about the online course here. So that gives you another piece of information, some additional insight. When you're connecting into the night sky, we're really connecting into more than just these stars, that there's something, much more beyond it, that is more meaningful, and more than just these balls of superheated gas out there in the sky, that they represent something very powerful in our psyches, in our soul, and our past and our future.
I mean, this is like, you just can't make this stuff up.
Right.
Oh my God. So on the Milky Way band, and we're moving from one toward the other, and we're going from the galactic edge towards the galactic center. Just wow, it's just so mind-blowing. It's amazing. So you want to talk about this?
Sure. So this is just a graphic image of like the sun speeding through the galaxy. And that, yes, we imagine the solar system as this orderly band of planets orbiting the sun. And the sun is that center of our solar system, and everything's in this perfect, these various circles that are orbiting. But in actuality, this is what's really happening here, is that the sun is racing through at 225 kilometers a second, 440 miles per second, racing through the galaxy. And it takes about 230 million years to complete one circuit around the galaxy. So the amount of time it takes for the sun to orbit around the center has been referred to as the cosmic year, or 225 million years. There's, depending on where you go to, they might say 230 million, they might say 225 million. And then the orbit of the sun is currently away from the star Sirius and toward the star Vega. Although we never really, quote, catch up with Vega, because we're traveling with it. We're traveling with it. Although it over many millennia, it could move off in different things, and then all the orbits, they end up turning into this kind of this swirl or helix type of shape over long periods of time. So the Earth is not just orbiting the sun, but it's also with the sun orbiting the galaxy along with the other planets. So we're moving through other areas of space that isn't just part of our local area.
What's fascinating about this to think about is that, so every year a person has a solar return, meaning the sun comes back to the sign and degree it was when you were born, within a day or so of your birthday. But we are not in the same place in the galaxy we were when you had your last solar birthday, or will we be there at the next solar birthday. It's constantly moving through, and a new space, a new territory, a new place. It's like so fascinating to contemplate that.
Absolutely. Oh, we got a repeat of the slide that we had before.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much the same. Oops.
So yeah, I mean, obviously this just gives you another, like, there's a solar apex there on the image, so that's where we're heading toward. And so all those planets are spiraling around, and with the sun sort of like directing the center of it, heading toward that apex point. You can see Vega located relatively close to that point.
Yeah. And here's Deneb also in this triangle, and Altair. So there's the triangle.
There it is.
Milky Way going through it. But the thing that's fascinating to also consider is Vega is the pole star 13,000 years ago, and Deneb somewhere, like, I don't know how many thousand.
I think it was something around 16 or 17,000, according to the Cygnus Mystery book.
Oh yeah. Right. Awesome. Yeah. So anyway, just so you know, the pole star isn't always the pole star we have, but it only moves about 1 degree every 72 years. So it doesn't move very fast. It takes about 26,000 years for it to come back to a starting point. So pretty cool. So here's another view of the solar antipex and the solar apex, and where we're moving towards, and how these triangles fit within that antipex and apex.
Yeah. And yeah, this is taken from the work that Kayla and I did with the Bohemian Star Course. You can see there's a lot of those other stars there. They're actually stars that are part of the Bohemian stars, which are their own alchemical and magical properties as well.
Yeah, the ancient alchemists I did a lot of work with these stars, and so we that was actually the first course we did, which is pretty cool.
Right. Back in
And if you haven't
2 years
taken
ago.
it, we highly recommend it. It's a lot of magic connected to that. So
Okay. Well, thank you all. This is the time to kind of open up for any questions here, and to see if questions about the course, questions about what we've presented today, and anything, and then related, even astrologically, whatever's coming up, feel free to jump in and ask.
so if you want to raise your hand or you want to just unmute, hopefully we won't have too many people trying to do that at the same time. So questions, comments, anything? If not, then we'll probably be done. Yeah, Dominica. And then Meredith, and Dominica, you're muted, so you're going to have to unmute yourself.
I was just waving to say thanks to everybody for a great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Dominica.
And then Meredith.
Hi, great presentation. My question is, I'm just beginning to get my bearings in the night sky and been studying astrology for a long time. And so I'm not like a rank beginner, but every time I learn more, I feel like, oh my God, you're a rank beginner. So much to know. And fascinating. I just want to know where this class fits in other classes you've taken. This would be the first class I've ever taken, and I don't want to get like too in over my head, although I did take a year with Divine Harmony's Star Mystery School. I know my star chart, so I'm not like, parents, I know something. So where would this class rank in terms of the other classes you've taught?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to take this, Cam, but I can share. If you're familiar with the zodiacal constellations, or at least the names of them, because that's where we also deal with the signs of the zodiac too, because they are, there's of course the planets. I'm sorry, the signs have moved. I mean, not the signs, but the constellations themselves have moved from our perspective because the Earth is wobbling. But that might be sort of the, between this one's more in sort of the esoteric. This one's more metaphysical and to some degree ceremonial. So it's not getting into too much of the technical stuff. So if you really want to get into more of the technical stuff, like the first 2 courses, particularly the zodiacal constellation one, would have more of that. It all depends on what, sort of what you're wanting to lean into, but this might be an easy one to lean into because we really have a broader picture with this one. And, going into the gateways might be giving you really like 2 of the brightest stars we're going to talk about, which are easy to see in the sky, depending on the time of year, of course. And that would help you get a little familiarity with the sky. And then maybe from there you can go into the zodiacal constellations after that. And we do have a package of all 3 where you get a bundled discount, if you will. It depends on what you feel like you're being drawn to. But this would be a sort of not easier is not the right word, but more fluid type of entry into the stars, into the astronomy.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I'll just add to that and say that the zodiacal constellations for astrologers can be really helpful because we are so conditioned to see the zodiacal constellations, what they're named, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, etc., as being connected to the signs The signs are the seasonal experience, but the seasonal signs moving through the constellations are not aligned any longer with those constellations. And
Right.
so one of the things we did was we took a deeper dive into the what does it mean? Like, how is this creating an evolution of our understanding now that the season of Aries, spring equinox, mostly overlays the fish? So it's not Pisces, it's the fish. So we call it the fish as a way to kind of help people get less confused. And then the season of Pisces is mostly overlaying the water bear. So yeah, and then what does that mean, and how do we work with that, and what's the evolution that's taking place around that? So that was pretty fun to do. And then the Bohemian stars is looking at 15 magical stars of the ancient alchemists, how they worked with them, elixirs, talismans, amulets, ways that, you know, the sigils, the things that they did, and how you can work with those stars to even make your own elixirs or create your own magic whenever planets are close to those stars, because that's what the ancient alchemists looked at. So it's I guess, as Erik was saying, it's a little more technical, and you know, you need to have the understanding of that. I think you do. And then
Yeah, I think I do too. And I'm but like I said, rudimentary, but I'm there. It's not like all new to me.
right.
This would be like a rounding, and I do I'm always more attracted to the esoteric metaphysical parts of this. So you know, that marriage of the technical part of it and learning more about that and then adding to it sounds good to me. So thank you both. It was amazing. Very well done.
Thank
Very
you.
well
Thank
done.
you.
Fascinating.
Meredith.
Thank you.
So good to hear, because we hoped that we could inspire people with learning a little bit more about the star magic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you guys are a great team.
Thank you.
We have fun.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Hi, this is Barbara. I came in on the very end. I was invited by Leslie. And so do you have a website or something so I can get up to speed? I've only been on the last 5 minutes, but what you're talking about is very interesting.
Oh, cool. So yeah, there'll be a replay of this that we're going to post. Where were we going to post it, Erik?
We are going to post it on YouTube since it's a free webinar.
Well, yeah, I know that part, but where will we post it on our website so people can access it?
Oh, I think we can post it on the front page or the which I think that could be a good idea. I'm actually I'm chatting. I'm putting our website on the chat box. So if people want to click on it, that's where we have the online courses at mystaralchemy.com and my and star ALCHEMY.com, mystaralchemy.com. So that's where we have this course and the other two courses we've done over the last couple of years. And you know, there are some materials already that we've developed for this, specifically for this course, plus some additional foundational videos that you can connect into if you haven't taken the other two courses as well, or if you have and you want to watch them again, they're available as well.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing is to if you're on my email list, I will be sending out a link to get the replay. If you're not on my email list, then you'll need to go to mystaralchemy.com to get the replay and click on the current class. And I think we'll just put it on the landing page and take out the stuff about the Zoom link and just put it in there. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we'll also have even on the YouTube page, we'll have a link to the online course too on the details as well, as we post that. But yeah, I'll be sending out from my own newsletter as well in the coming days, once everything's posted. And you know, so if you're signed up on my newsletter as well, or Kaylin's, or you know, on our social media, we have, Facebook and Instagram. Well, My Star Alchemy's Instagram is in kind of limbo right now. But so feel free to check in wherever you feel comfortable, and whatever outlet, or if you need to email us, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I'll put in the show notes the links that we have as well. So you can have easy access to that. And so
Thank you. I'll go explore the website.
thank you. And Christina, thank you for saying that you hope I'll be fully recovered soon. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was great to see you both. It's very late here, so I was like,
Yeah.
but I just love listening to both of you. And yeah, Kaylin, I hope will be fully recovered from your injury very soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm making progress, so that's good. And it's great to see you. Oh my gosh, it's been forever.
Yes.
Good to see you, Christina.
Nice to see you too, Erik, Kaylin. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. All right. Anyone else have a question
Or comment?
or comment or thought?
Okay. Well, then I think we're ready to wrap this up. And again, this will all be posted with more links and information, and really grateful for everybody that was able to be with us live, and excited for those who get to see this because they weren't able to be with us live due to time zone issues or whatever, because it's also the middle of the week.
Right.
Anyway, all right. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.